Hello everyone, Marc Daniel Patrick here, musical theater coach. Thank you so much for taking time to check out the channel. If it's your first time here, go ahead and hit that subscribe button, and you can find me on Instagram at Marc Daniel Patrick or at my website at marcdanielpatrick.com. So earlier this week, we did promise you we would start some Q&A sessions in response to all the questions and comments we're getting either on YouTube, Instagram, or email. So thank you to everyone who's reached out, and I promise you I will get to each and every one of those questions. Maybe not in this video, but in future videos to come. If you've submitted a question, I promise I will get to it in the future. All right, here we go. Okay, so kicking us off in a logical place to start, Grace Ford Hammock says, what was the first musical you ever saw? And actually, I love this question, and I think everyone who watches this channel should be chiming in and participating in this one. Let me know what musical was the first musical you saw, why you loved it, and why it made you fall in love with musical theater. I'd love to read through all of those. For me, it was actually a community theater production of Annie. It was the first show I ever saw. I remember my mom took my cousin and I to go see it. And I remember so vividly getting in the car afterwards and saying, "Mommy, I want to do that." And I don't know what it was. I don't know if it was because, you know, as a kid, you're sitting home and watching TV shows all the time or movies or whatever, and you know that that's sort of make-believe. But when you get into a theater with a whole bunch of strangers, you don't know them, you have nothing in common with them. I mean, you're all facing the same way. That's the only thing you have in common with them. When you're all watching something live playing out in front of you, right? Someone singing and dancing and acting and having emotions, and it's all teetering on this, you know, this very thin line of someone could screw up and it could all fall apart. Something about that was just so invigorating to me that I loved it. I couldn't get enough of it. And I wanted to go up and be there. So the next season I went and auditioned for, they were putting on a production of Mame in the next season. They needed a kid to come in and play a very small part in the first act, and I wanted to go and audition. And I remember showing up with my mother and being in the car outside the theater and refusing to go in. I was like, I'm not going in there. I can't do this anymore. I couldn't believe I was actually there. And my mother, God bless her, said to me, you know, look, we're here already. We made the trip. Let's go in. Let's see what it's about. And if you hate it, we never have to come back again. We'll never speak about it. Nothing, you know, we'll never say, oh, remember that time. Nothing. We'll just forget about it entirely and we'll leave it alone. And it's funny. And obviously I went in and got the part and the rest is history. But it's funny because I think I've heard I think I've heard Kristen Bell have a similar first audition story when she was a kid. And her mother kind of said the same thing to her. So I wonder how many theater performers are out there that have had that same experience where you're just so terrified the first time you go in because you don't know what it's going to be about. And you've idolized these people and you've looked up to them so much and you don't think you can come up to that and do it yourself. But that was it. That's how it all got started for me. M. Ashworth says, is there an older production you wish you'd seen in person? That's actually a great question. I think for me, it would honestly be The Phantom. The Phantom of the Opera is one of my top shows. It would be anyone's top musical theater shows of all time. But I think because it's been on for so long and because so many people have done it and so many people have stepped into those roles, I would have loved to see that first iteration of it and see the original cast and just experience that. And I wonder if they all knew collectively, you know, if the critics knew, if the audience knew, if the people in the show knew that this was now going to set the standard for musical theater for however many years to come, for decades to come, right? That this was going to be something that would live on for as long as it has. So for me, that would be the first one I would love to see personally. Coral Reeves, dude, I just woke up and you had hit me with this gem. Now I'm crying here. Yeah, join the club. I think I cry at least once a video now. It seems to be my stupid trademark. So she goes on to say, Q&A question here. No offense, but do you know that you kind of look like Sean Bean? I'm not sure if that's an offense, supposed to be offensive to me or to him. I quite like Sean. I love his acting. You know, Lord of the Rings, Game of Thrones, GoldenEye. I had to come to think of it, he seems to die in everything he's in. So maybe she's wishing I would die? I don't, because then that is kind of offensive, but moving on. Cody Me says, I have a question. How do I keep myself from choking up when singing heavy dramatic songs without losing the emotion? Great question, Cody, honestly. And recently in the Cats video we did for Memory with Jennifer Hudson, so many people chimed up and said they hate that she's letting the emotion flow so freely, and they let it, and it kind of gets in the way of the vocals. And I would say it does, absolutely. So in answer to this, I'd say there's a line you don't want to cross. I would say it's not a bad thing to show your emotion and kind of let that out, and if it's real and rooted in you and coming from a good place, then that's exactly what the character needs, and that's exactly what you should be feeling. Especially in musical theater, that can really have an effect on you and really tarnish or hurt your vocals of getting out that crystal clear, complete sound. But like we talk about a lot on this channel, is like there's no problem with throwing some things away if you can pull it together and really hit the high points of the song and really showcase your voice at least 1 or 2 times during the piece. It's not that big of a deal. But to answer how do you keep from choking up when you're singing heavy dramatic songs is honestly just to do it over and over again. If you're rehearsing it over and over, you're performing it over and over, you eventually get into a routine of where you know emotionally in your head where the song or where the piece needs to sit. And if you're doing your job properly, you're drawing on personal experiences you've had, or really just putting yourself in that character's shoes and really able to feel what they're feeling. And that's going to bring out certain emotions a lot of times, honestly, that you don't expect. And when you're doing the show 8 times a week, as most Broadway stars are, each night can bring something totally different. And that's exactly what it's supposed to do. It's supposed to be authentic and organic in the moment. And the more and more you run the piece, you'll suddenly find out where you're losing it the most. And you can kind of pull it back and kind of find a spot of like, okay, I know I'm going to lose it in the song here, so I'll pull it back a little bit and push it more on other parts of the song where you need that emotional cue. I don't mind it as much as some other people will, but if it is hurting you from getting crystal clear vocals out or performing the piece, then yeah, just rehearse it over and over and find where those moments are that you're really losing it, and learn how to control that and learn how to maybe pull back a little bit just in those moments so that you don't completely lose it. But great question. Next up from Kathy Cunningham. She says, I'm in my 50s and just discovered singing, still green, and acting. How does one go about finding parts, or if I'm good enough to give it a try, what tips would you give a reluctant newbie? Well, first of all, Kathy, thank you for putting yourself out there and sending in that question. And if I look closely at your profile picture, you kind of look like Megan Mullally, so half your battle's won right there. And in truth, I would say that I love this question so much because in music, acting, the arts in general, really, I think is such a forgiving space for age. There's no time, there's no one too young or too old to start in this business, and there's no one too young or too old to break out and have a huge career in this business. If anything, it's a little bit more special, when someone who's so young can handle themselves on stage and can deliver such a masterful performance. It's so impressive because they're so young. The opposite is true for someone who's a little bit later on in life, where they've never done it before, and now this perception of, oh, look at this person is whatever age they're at, and look at them tackling this role and finding this hidden talent or hidden gem that they've had all along, and now they're just finding it, and that's also impressive. First of all, I would say just keep doing it. The best the first tip I would give for anyone who's just starting out is just to do it. Just get up and do it. Whether you're singing along in the shower, whether you're, singing to tracks of musical theater that you've listened to forever, or listening to your favorite artist, whatever, belt out anything you want with Celine Dion if you want. Just do it, right? Just push yourself more and more to do it. There's so much information out there and coaches who are genuine and ready and willing to help someone. And honestly, to your point about how does one go about finding parts, or even if you're good enough to try, I'll start with the latter point on there. If you're good at, being good enough is incredibly subjective, right? You look at how many performances we've reacted to on this channel, and so many people will step up and say in the comments that they hate one person and love another. As many people who love one performance, just as many people are going to hate that performance. So being good enough to give it a try is so subjective, and if it's up to just that one person to cast you in something, then why not just go for it? Why? There's nothing that comes of dwelling on whether I'm good enough, because there's never going to be an overwhelming opinion of whether you're good enough or not good enough. 90% of the people you come across in an audition can tell you that you're never going to make it and this isn't the career for you. And 9% of the people will say you've got a shot and maybe something to work on. And that 1% is going to give you a job. So that's the way this industry works. But the best part is, Kathy, is look at what we're doing here, right? This channel has grown so much more than I thought it would. What it's done is it's brought so many people who share a love and a passion for musical theater to come together and talk about it. And that's the most beautiful thing about musical theater, and the most beautiful thing about the arts is it doesn't necessarily have to be something that's your job. It doesn't have to be something that pays the bills. If you're not dependent on that, it can just be something that you just love to do and just fills you and just gives you more joy than anything you've found in your life. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that at all. Record yourself singing and performing a piece, send it to me, and I'll gladly take a look at it. Maybe try to help steer you in the right direction. But that's a fantastic question. Okay, that's all we have for this video. Thank you so much for watching. I promise you I will be making more and more of these, as there are plenty more questions to be answered. And if you have any comments or questions you've thought of during this video, please throw them in the comments below. I promise you I will get to each and every one of those. Until next time, I'm Marc Daniel Patrick, and thanks so much for watching.